Hey everyone, my name is Peter Steinberg, and I am honored to be the individual kind of leading the charge here at SGC. The idea for a podcast is one that we've had for many years, honestly, now. And as the company grows, our capabilities grow as well. And we are really, really excited to bring you guys an educational platform where we talk cards, we give our opinions on cards, what's going on in the hobby. We hope that you guys learn something really cool, maybe about grading or just SGC in general every episode. And we're really excited to kick off this initial one. To lead off, our guests today are Thomas, Jeremy, and Evan over here. Guys, you want to give a brief introduction? Thomas?
Yeah, I've worked at SGC for 3 years. I'm in the marketing department here. I have some experience in grading and just excited to be here.
And my name is Jeremy. I also started a little over 3 years ago. Started on the operation, receiving packages as they came in from collectors and going through submissions. Worked on the operation for a while, and I've been on the marketing team for about a year now.
Yeah, I've been working at SGC for about 2.5, 3 years now. Started in research and ID, and then worked in a couple different departments in the operation, and then made my way over to marketing. And I've been there for about a year and a half now, so it's been fun.
Yeah, Thomas, Jeremy, and Evan are really some critical pieces here at SGC. In addition to, as they touched upon, general marketing, that sort of thing. There's a lot of strategy talks that we have, obviously, together, guys. There's really no better consultants in the industry. They understand all of you because at the end of the day, they are, and I am myself, one of you, which is just a passionate collector who knows what they want in the hobby. And it's I think SGC, we put it on ourselves to deliver that as often as we possibly can. So hopefully this podcast is just one drop in this kind of big bucket of value that we're looking to provide here as far as the impact on the hobby goes. And let's kick things off. What do you guys say?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, cool. So first off, what's going on kind of in the hobby? What's going on at SGC? We obviously just announced the $9 Bowman promotion. That's for cards produced during the year 2022 and 2023. Anything you guys are kind of particularly excited about for this latest rendition of the Topps SGC collaboration?
Yeah, I'm fired up about it for a few reasons, but mainly all of the specials, the $9 top specials we've run in the past have been on brand new releases. So a product just comes out, people are ripping it and they're able to send those cards in, but it's really specific to that one set. And this is our first time going kind of broad, covering to the span of 2 years, and anything that's manufactured by Bowman, and the name of the product starts with Bowman, and it gives people the opportunity, and collectors can go through boxes they've had that maybe cards they wouldn't have graded in the past that now make sense to grade, and they can include them in the special, and you can kind of take a look at maybe some things you've glanced over before. Yeah,
I think that's actually a really interesting point. I personally hadn't thought of it that way. The fact that values move constantly. Yeah. In fact, it's you'd be hard pressed to find a value that just kind of stays where it is for anywhere over probably a few weeks, even a few days at this point. And that makes a lot of sense. A prospect can rise, a prospect can fall. And it's definitely interesting kind of in this moment of time to look back and kind of pick and choose what makes sense. Mm-hmm. Thomas, what do you got?
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing that's most exciting for me is the inclusion of other sports. I know Wemby's like one of the hottest prospects in the world right now, and people have been asking for other sports to be included in the special. Now that Fanatics is doing football and basketball cards, it's really awesome to see.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah,
Evan.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say I'm jazzed up about, obviously Wemby is off to an incredibly, a hot start in the NBA. So, seeing what Wemby cards come in, definitely exciting.
Yeah, no, I totally agree.
Piggybacking off what you just said, I think, NIL has a lot to do with, these guys gaining popularity in college. Now that, they can do commercials, their name is just more out there, for the hobby. So.
Yeah, definitely makes sense. I mean, I think one thing that I'm super excited about, there's so many opportunities, when it comes to, obviously, whether it's PC, whether you're flipping cards or you're, some version of a card dealer. I think all of us have some version of being like, kind of a card dealer in us. There's just so much opportunity. I mean, you could, what that means is you basically type in 2022 Bowman or 2023 Bowman, and, your eBay page is just feeding you essentially thousands and thousands of cards, probably tens of thousands, that qualify for $9 grading. So you see a nicely centered example of a card of any kind of significance. It's a great candidate to at least, spin the wheel on, give it a shot, see if you pull the 10, that sort of thing. And, I think the nice thing, if not, is, at a $9 entry point, you just simply don't have much to lose. You get the fun out of it as well.
Yeah, you make a good point, because obviously there's a lot of prospects in these products for Bowman, and at $9 grading, you got a guy like Jackson Holiday. Obviously, you got Ellie, Jackson Churio. Obviously, no matter the value of the card, it's going to be $9. When you submit with us, so it is a great opportunity for people to, let's just say, gamble on that prospect without having to, spend an arm and a leg on grading.
Totally agree. So moving on from the Bowman special, guys, we had quite a month in October. I had touched upon it in kind of a brief update video that we made pretty recently. October was wild. It really was. I think October was the first month where we really, saw some data behind just how successful, the rollout of the new pricing was, along with obviously the new app. Really great month. I think the highlight that we all took away is TCG, man. That has really been, a super bright spot for our team right now. We were talking about earlier how even in the comment section of so many of our posts on the main SGC page, you have a lot of just TCG collector presence that's in those comments now, and those people just didn't exist. We're not talking years ago. I mean, those people didn't exist 3 months ago. So, we looked at the numbers, and we're just about at a 75% month over month growth rate there. And the truth is, it's great to see so many collectors just jumping on board with a grading company whose mantra is just kind of treating collectors right and going about the craft the right way. So I think that as exciting as it is, kind of what we've done thus far, I'm much more excited for what's to come, because I truly think there's just a snowball effect here, with the collector base and TCG kind of, being what it is. It just fits very well with what SGC stands for as a brand, kind of what our brand, at least does its best to represent at all times. And I'm really looking forward to just even the organic word of mouth type thing, that's exciting for me.
Yeah. Well, the three of us, we basically oversee the social media side of things. So, when you're sending a DM to SGC, you're the three of us are the ones that are seeing it. But, shout out to our operation, because, obviously we're known for getting cards back quickly, and we're seeing a lot of people, tagging us when they get their order back, obviously excited that they're getting them back fast. But like you said, the snowball effect, someone sees that on their story of someone else posting, and then all of a sudden they're like, maybe I'll give them a shot. And that's really all we want from this. That's why we made truthfully the price point we did. We just want people to see how, how good of a product and experience that we provide. And, it's been pretty awesome to see that initially, that people are starting to really catch on, I guess.
Yeah, and I think, I think you make a great point there. And I think one thing that was really, something you touched on that's interesting is people, turnaround time isn't easy. There's a reason that we kind of stand alone in the way that we approach it. And the reason for that is there's really two prongs to it. The first thing is you have to have the desire to have that turnaround time. In other words, it's a choice. Are you looking to have the standard, 2 to 3 months, 3 to 7 weeks, whatever it may be? Or do you want to do something differently? Do you want to give more? And I think that in addition to the choice, which I think it's pretty clear SGC made very early on, it's then about the execution. You know, the will is there. We wish our turnaround time was 1 business day, let alone 6 business days. So, you know, I think, as you said, credit to the team here, man. It's really, you know, they're the unsung heroes. You know, we just, in marketing, in everything I do on social media, every time I represent the brand, I'm just talking about what they're doing. You know, that's what we're really doing. We're just shining a light to the amazing work that takes place here every day. So shout out to the operation. Yeah, we could not be here without this amazing team.
For sure. And a big testament to that, which we see on social, is people aren't just trying us out. We're getting a lot of repeat new customers, people that have tried us out for 1 TCG order, and now they're sending in a second, a third, a fourth, which just shows that they had a great experience. And
yeah, look, it's like a requirement here. You know, we can't control if that collector's going to choose to use us again, but we can control grading the cards right to the best of anyone's ability, you know, having them look as good as possible. If there are any issues, handling those issues as effectively as possible. And I think we're rocking and rolling as far as that goes. So cool.
For sure.
Anyway, moving on from that, we have some big news, obviously, in the hobby. A 1914 Baltimore News Babe Ruth card graded in SGC 3 is currently up for auction on Robert Edward Auctions. I believe the bidding is currently at $6.3 million with 17 days left, and this card has a real shot to break the record. It's a super special card, guys. If you haven't heard this news before, I encourage you to check it out. The card was featured on the Today Show and ESPN. It's just been everywhere. Obviously, anytime the hobby gets that kind of exposure, it's just a huge win for all of us. But the card itself is very, very cool. Maybe we'll get into kind of the backstory of what is so cool and kind of, you know, unique to this particular vintage card. But to kick things off, I'm going to throw a question at you guys, which is, you know, there's talk about the record. Obviously, the current record is an SGC 9.5 1952 mantle, which sold, I believe, last August. And $12.6 million is no joke. You know, that is not a low bar to get over for that record. So my question to you guys is, do you think that this Ruth will break the record? And do you think it should break the record? I'll start out with, why don't we start with you, Evan?
Sure.
We'll snake back around.
I think that it will break the record, and I think it will because, I mean, there's a lot. I think it would be helpful, if you don't mind, I think you explaining to the audience the background on the card, because I think a lot of people, you know, the 52 mantle is so that's just like a card that's known. But you know, this card, a lot of people are probably seeing for the first time. Maybe giving a little bit of just a description on just like the significance of the card first, and
yeah,
then,
sure,
if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this is if you ask me what's so cool about the card. Yeah. So, you know, obviously we have a ton of vintage collectors that, you know, absorb SGC's content and use SGC services, and we have a ton of modern collectors who do the same. Kind of for the more modern folks out there who may not know about this card. So what's really special about this card is that Babe Ruth's quote-unquote official rookie year, call it, where his MLB debut patch would have come from, is the year 1916, quite a while ago. Well, this card is from 1914. So many people know the story of Babe Ruth, obviously being a fantastic pitcher for the Red Sox, and then evolving into the best home run hitter that the game had ever seen at the time, and really, in all honesty, one of the first real home run threat that the game had seen at the time in any kind of substantial way. Babe Ruth gets traded to the Yankees, or sold to the Yankees, and from there he becomes the legendary Babe Ruth that all of us obviously know about as the home run king and that sort of thing. As I said, what's really cool about this card is before any of that took place, Babe Ruth found himself in kind of the minor league system of the Orioles. Okay, on this card, we all know Babe Ruth is this hulking figure who's, you know, drinking a beer and chowing down on hot dogs in the middle of a, you know, Major League Baseball game. Well, in this photo on the card, he looks like he's about 17 years old. And he's built like Ted Williams. I mean, the guy is like a twig in the card. In addition, the card even writes, I believe it says Ruth and then pitcher. Just so cool. I mean, what came thereafter is really, that's an American icon right there. So I think there's that component. Then obviously for anyone who dabbles in the modern space, we all know that serial numbered cards are the rage. A card's value is often determined by how many of those cards are printed and how scarce it is. Well, this card, there are only 10 copies known to exist in total circulation. What's really special about that to me is that is true scarcity. I mean, that's not 10 copies because, they decided to number them to 10 because they thought these things would be so valuable. There's just 10 known to exist. I mean, at the end of the day, it's almost amazing to me that there are even 10 out there when you think about what this was. I mean, imagine the year 1914, you're given this almost promotional card by a newspaper of a no-name, essentially, kid who's a pitcher in the minor leagues. You're going to hold on to that one, and clearly, 10 fortunate individuals did at some point, and the card has just, it's blown up. I mean, for good reason too. So I think the only other thing I'll talk about as far as the card goes, its size. It's very substantial in size. We're used to, back in the year 1914, you have a lot of cards in tobacco products. Later on in the 1920s, cards are put in candy and caramels. And I think what's special about it is the fact that back then, cards were often miniature in size compared to what we're used to today. This card is actually larger than what we're used to today, which is just really cool. It's a piece of history. It's a piece of art. It tells a story in and of itself.
Yeah, I could have said all that, but it's a lot more interesting coming out of your mouth. So, that's basically hit the nail on the head. I just think he's just a mythical guy who, like you said, in 1914, no one knew that this guy was going to become anything. And the fact that someone even held on to it from that year and didn't throw it out or the whole thing is...
What's cool is possibly mistakenly.
Yeah,
you would think that someone's not tucking it away. Like, I'll just hold on to that for, I'll keep it in my family for 100, almost 120 years. It was probably thrown in a trash drawer and just not cleaned out.
And that's a wild thing to think about because no one's sitting there being like people weren't prospecting. Like, no one's like, oh, this guy might be, let me hold on to this.
Right.
Like, this might go up in value. Like, I don't even know if were people buying baseball cards back then? Like, were they just trading them? Or?
Well, they weren't really buying baseball cards as much as they were buying other products that were using baseball cards as promotional kind of selling, tools to sell that product.
Right.
So they were more included almost the way a Happy Meal would come with a toy, kind of in that sense. So kicking it over... Jeremy, why don't you give us your take?
Yeah, it's so cool to hear the history on it. Such a unique card. I don't know if it will break the record. I mean, the 52 Topps mantle is the most hyped card in the hobby, and that 9.5 that sold was incredible. But do I think it should? Probably. I mean, the sheer scarcity of it, the unique history of it, and Babe Ruth being who he was. People always talk about in the hobby that real rare cards like that don't come up for auction frequently. So when you see it available, you have to buy it at that time because you don't know when it's going to come up again. So I do think that there's the chance for collectors to kind of have that feeling for this auction and take their opportunity to go for it, and it might go above that 12.5 mark. It probably should.
12.6.
12.6. 12.6. Yes.
Let's not throw away that $100,000. Thomas,
like it's nothing. Yeah, I mean, I think it definitely has a chance to beat it. I think, I'm partial to the 52 just because, we want to talk about scarcity, rarity. There might be, a million copies of that card, but the 9.5 mantle is the best example in the hobby, and I think it's a true 101. So,
yeah, I mean, I think that's a very good point. Something that I thought about piggybacking off of what Thomas just said is the fact that you interact with a 52 mantle decently frequently if you're attending card shows. I mean, even just from a digital perspective, you could go on eBay and find a handful of 52 mantles. You know, nearly every auction house, you know, when that catalog goes out, there's got to be at least one, you know, in some kind of low or mid grade. And with that almost exposure to such a higher degree, you could argue that there's an almost enhanced, a disproportionate amount of appreciation for when you see one that is truly, I mean, if not the crown jewel, it's certainly right up there in the conversation as being kind of the best of the best. And I think it's an interesting take, you know, kind of the 2 points there. In my opinion, I mean, there's arguments for both. And I think whatever happens, it'll certainly come close, and rightfully so. It's really nice in the hobby to see, you know, a price take place when a card is up for auction that just, it like makes sense. You don't feel it's undervalued. You don't feel like it was overhyped or, you know, who's buying that thing for that? Nothing like that. So this is one, look, if I had the money, maybe I'd be a bidder on this card, but I think I will say it makes sense to me. You know, some people look at people who will shell out money for that, and I'd argue, well, you know, you have historical paintings going for, you know, far more than 10x the price that this Ruth is going for. So if you love the hobby, it's got to make sense to you, you know. So moving on, my next question is this Babe Ruth card, whether it sells for the 12.6, whether it sells for 10, whether it goes way over 12.6. It's an incredible sale. It's an incredible value attached to this baseball card at the end of the day. Will we ever see modern cards achieve these kinds of heights where we're talking not even necessarily 12.6 million, but 7 million, let's say 5 million? Will we see that? Evan?
Yeah, well, what's right now the Luca logo man, right?
It was 4.6.
4.1, 4.6. Okay.
So, I do not think that.
That was an odd way to say that. I do not think.
just gotta keep people on their toes watching.
Yeah.
No, I do not think that a modern card will sell for that much. I guess it depends. Like, you know, in 50 to 75 years, is a a LeBron or Patrick Mahomes card going to be viewed as vintage? You know, is that where we're gonna?
I think it. I mean, I would imagine so. You know, I would assume by then, you know, hopefully, you know, the hobby's moving strong, and by then I would think we're almost separating things out by era, because it wouldn't, you know, the modern wouldn't really make sense, but maybe the post 1990 era, whatever that would be. But that would qualify. So having said that, if that's a question of yours,
okay,
the LeBron it could be 70 years from now. Do you see that card holding that sort of value?
I don't.
Next,
still,
Thomas.
Yeah, I do think so. I think, you know, the cards with that same cocktail of like rarity, transcendent player. Like, nobody alive today watched Babe Ruth, but everybody knows who he is. And I think, you know, guys like Brady, MJ, LeBron, Ohtani, like those guys will always be popular because of what they did. It's, you know, they were ahead of everybody else in their time.
Right.
And, yeah.
I hope you're right. It pains me to say it, but as a modern guy, but I don't think modern cards will reach those heights. I mean, there's just the amount of parallels and products and options you have out there to collect. I think, you know, there's a slim chance that one will rise to the top and people will be most sought after that product or that parallel, but there's so many one of ones and there's so many different logo men even that, you know, I don't see one card garnering that much attention.
Well, I'll give my take, and I think I want to also kind of tie in another question that I had for you guys here, which is, if it were to be the case, what would that card be? In other words, what card might be in that you know, have that possibility of achieving that kind of value one day? I mean, I know for me, my answer is undoubtedly modern cards will be selling for these kinds of prices. I think it will take time, and I think that it's a very small subset of cards, as it should be, by the way. Let's put it this way. Topps just announced the MLB debut patch. Okay. Let's pretend the Topps made that announcement 30 years ago. What would Albert Pujols, Alex Rodriguez, Ichiro Suzuki, Derek Jeter. That's a $5 million card all day, isn't it? Do you guys agree?
Worn in his first game, yes.
Worn in his first game.
But it's like Pujols doesn't get the love he deserves.
Sure,
even now.
but call it, there's always the talk of the steroid era, but Derek Jeter, the cleanest man on planet Earth. I mean, for me, it's a no doubter.
Yeah, no, that when you put it that way, yeah, I think that assuming that they make this type of product, this one-of-one patch for other sports, that I could see, because now there's some provenance to the
right.
That's game used to another level, and I think that when you put it that way, you might have changed my mind. I think there's a good chance. I mean, isn't that essentially? Correct me if I'm wrong, but aren't logo men are they game used?
Yeah,
like because I know LeBron
should be.
Yeah, because I know LeBron has one, and I think it was Ultimate Collection. But
they're game used, but you have no idea what game,
right?
When, if it even was his rookie season.
They could always just print another logo man. The next year, they could print another logo man. The later that year that technically isn't a rookie product, that sort of thing. With the debut patch, they could want to print as many of these as they can, but they don't have the ability. At least when it comes to the debut.
Yeah, that's fair. Honestly, I don't know if you're going to ask this, but if there was a modern card that, I think it's a bit of a hot take, but I think the Steph Curry Superfractor, if it ever surfaced, I think that card has a chance to reach some pretty high numbers. I don't know there's just so much behind it. Does it exist? Is it sitting in someone's collection overseas somewhere? Did someone throw out a box of 09 Topps Chrome back in the day? And for all we know, it's trashed. I think that there's a lot of mystique to it, and that if it did ever surface, obviously Steph changed the way that basketball has been played, and I think he's just someone that will always be spoken about when you talk about the NBA for years to come. And I think that could be a card that, if it ever did surface, we could see some serious. I think
price. Speaking of the, because obviously the runner-up here, I feel pretty strongly that the MLB debut patches will outsell first Bowman Superfractor autos. That's my take. We have no evidence to back that up, and we'll see how it shakes out. But if you ask me, what was so genius about doing this is, as Fanatics has been extremely clear on their goals to exponentially increase the size of the pie, the amount of collectors out there. It's so much more digestible to me, to your average person that's not been in cards their whole life, that didn't grow up in the hobby. Like, imagine that Steph Curry, you describing it, to your mom or anyone, one of your buddies, okay? It's like you're telling them, like, okay, so there are different colors, and this color is numbered to this, which means there are that many out there, and then there's this color, and the colors are kind of assigned to the serial numbers very arbitrarily. There's not really any rhyme or reason. It changes from set to set, and it's like, yeah, that one has the gold discs, and there's only one of them. But when it comes to, that was on his jersey the first time he ever took the field. And the second he came off the field, they ripped it off his jersey and put it in this trading card right here. To me, it just creates a level of understanding that I believe to be the biggest hurdle of how we grow the pie. It's that they just don't get what we all get, what everyone watching here gets, which is how cool this thing is, trading cards, how the depth of it, the complexity of it. It just makes sense, You
make a good point. I mean, I shouldn't say the barrier to entry, but like, I know when I collected when I was younger, and I stopped for a long time, and when I started working back at, not working back, but working for SGC, it was like there's so much to digest and understand. Like, well, why does this serial number is lower numbered, but this higher one sells for more sometimes? And
great point.
It's like there's logic, but there's not logic behind
Right.
it in order to
A lot of caveats and things like that.
Right. And if this thing's going to grow, it really needs to be more digestible for people to understand. Like, and like you said, like that's easy to wrap your mind around. Like, oh, that makes sense why that card is sought after.
Right.
So,
yeah. And I think there are a few cards that probably have a chance kind of as, that are already produced, meaning putting those debut patches aside, which is obviously a very new idea. Thomas, you mentioned MJ. I think that his game jersey auto out of the 1997, Upper Deck game jersey. Mm-hmm. That's got what it takes for sure. Mm-hmm. We'll see. It's not there now, I don't think. Maybe it's a touch above $1 million in the right grade, I would think. But that card, I think, is one of the very few that checks kind of every box as far as what it would take to muster up that level of, just desire to own that thing by these, super wealthy collectors out there, essentially.
Yeah.
Cool. So going on from there, guys, we talked a lot about the debut patches. Why don't we talk a little about kind of SGC, okay? Because I think what we were really excited to do with this podcast, we try to be as transparent as possible, but I'd argue that the bar in the hobby in general for grading companies and their kind of what's expected of them, if you ask me, is far too low. And I'm proud to say that I feel that we are doing the most when it comes to transparency, but I think that we would be doing the entire hobby a disservice if we weren't trying to push the limits with this kind of podcast setting. In other words, let's give them some cool stuff, for lack of a better term, that they might not be able to hear about, even on our own Instagram page, that sort of thing. Thomas, anything about SGC that you kind of wish or want more of our collectors to know about?
Yeah, I think just like the overall consistency in our grading room and the level of experience and expertise we have in that room, and just like some of the guys that are in there, they don't always want to be on camera, but just the amount of stuff they know about every single card and set, it's you could go in there and get a college degree from those guys on trading cards. It's really amazing, and the whole process, like your cards are getting looked at by probably 2 or 3 graders, every time you submit. And, I feel like you don't get that with other grading companies.
Yeah, look, and then they go to a department led by Spence to just check over that work that those graders, had assigned. So
your card's getting looked at by 5 or 6 experts before it leaves the building.
Yeah, definitely a strong point, Jeremy.
Yeah, and kind of it almost ties into that a little bit. Is I wish more people knew how much every single employee at this company cared, not only about the collectors that are sending the cards in, but for the actual cards themselves. Whether you're in the research and ID department, receiving, quality check, whatever it is, everyone truly cares about the job that they're doing, making sure it's done quickly and correctly and consistently, and the level of detail that goes into each part of the process. Sometimes people from the outside looking in might think, the grader pulls the card out of the box and, it gets encapsulated and it goes straight home. But there's a lot of people that are involved in the process, even for one single card. And each one of those individuals puts an immense amount of care and detail into the work that they do. And it translates into, the customer experience. And it's really what has made me fall in love with SGC, because I've never been at a company where every single person that works here, they treat it like their baby, like it's their own, and that's the way it should be.
Yeah, super strong point. I think one thing that I think is super important to add to that is the fact that I want to remind everyone that not so long ago, SGC was not in a big, beautiful office like this, and we did not have a team that was even a tenth the size of the team today. And I think that kind of underdog mentality, that we're only going to get there if we outwork the competition and if we treat these people better like they've never been treated before, like a grading company, and if we show a level of consistency in our grading that's never been seen before, by one of the big three graders, and just that sort of thing, when customer service, whatever it is, it creates this burning desire in us to almost be so perfect in everything we do, because without that drive, we just would have never have been successful to the point that we are today. In other words, we had to work to get it. We had to earn it. And I think that fire remains stronger today than it ever has before.
Definitely.
And I totally appreciate that, man. I think that's very important to get out there, on behalf of those people too, who grind it out here every day, and they don't always get the love, at least publicly, that I wish they did. Evan?
Yeah, kind of going off of what Thomas said, but just the knowledge that the guys and girls on the operation all have, not just from a grading perspective, but starting all the way from, there's 6 or 7 parts of the operation that a lot of people, you don't see or hear about, but starting from receiving all the way to shipping, everyone has some sort of knowledge about cards. It's almost like a prerequisite when you get to SGC. It's like, if you're not in a department that is specifically, whether it's research and ID or grading, where you're really handling the cards, it's still almost like you got to learn it still. And that's something that was impressive to me when I started, and just it'd be really cool. We've always talked about, how can we just show off our employees more, and honestly, going to shows a lot. I'm sure a lot of people that watch this go to shows. You've met our team. That's a glimpse into just how we are as a team. Everyone that meets us at shows, I'm proud to say, has nothing really ever bad to say.
Yeah. And I forgive me for interjecting here, Evan, but I think it's also important to say, as kind of their boss, shout out to the show teams. I mean, those individuals, they go to shows on the weekends. They're then put, back in the fire when they get back home operating, and only to get on a plane and, fly out to California or Las Vegas or, wherever the show may be that weekend. Those guys and girls are just absolutely killer, or we wouldn't have them representing us on the road. And again, you want to talk about unsung heroes, because you don't see that on our Instagram page. But I'm sure a lot of you have interacted with those individuals at shows. And I just want to take a moment to thank them, because that's a very impactful role, to be representing this group of people, this massive team that we have here on the road in a face-to-face setting, so shout out to them. I think as far as my take, what I would want more people, or what I guess I wish more people knew about SGC, once in a while we get, we're pleased to see that a customer that we may have assisted, imagine there was a problem with an order and we really went out of our way, almost not only to make it right, but just so far above and beyond, what would probably again be that lower bar in the industry. Once in a while, those collectors will post that experience on Blowout forums, on Instagram, in a Facebook group, and everyone just kind of, rallies around that and says, wow, almost like waving the SGC flag, that's so awesome. Who else would do that? The thing I want to remind everyone is the proportion of people who do post about it after it happens. And it's not expected, but always appreciated, I guess. The amount of people that post, it's probably 5%, maybe it's 7%, 3%. I don't know what it is, but I know it is a very, very small fraction of the time that these kinds of interactions are even brought to light. Now, when you have so many of those interactions taking place consistently on a daily basis, that's when word of mouth spreads, and that's why SGC is known for our customer service, and that's taken a lot of time to build that reputation. But I just want to remind everyone of the work that goes on behind the scenes, whether it's buying back a bad card. We'll get a card for reholder sometimes. guys, we've been in business for 25 years now. You know, in 1999, we may have had a slightly different take on centering or on how to handle a specific issue going on the back of the surface of the card than we do today. And I'm the one that signs the checks, and I sign a lot of checks. And we don't, you know, go out and market it and make a big thing and, you know, almost pound our chests about it. But to some degree, sure, I wish there was a way that more people could see all of the good that we do behind the scenes, just simply because we should be doing that sort of thing. So that would be, that's where I stand on that, you know, that kind of thing.
And that's why I think this podcast is going to be awesome, is because we always say, you know, outside of your, you know, behind the desk videos or selfie videos, you know, that's the majority of how we get our, you know, messaging out. And this will be a good opportunity to highlight some of those things that you just talked about. So.
Yeah, totally agree. Well, guys, this has been an awesome conversation. It really has. I've enjoyed it a lot. Thanks so much for the time, guys. Thank you to the SGC team who helped bring this podcast to life. Hope you guys really enjoyed it. We hope we can bring you more of this, you know, as frequently as we possibly can in the future. We'd love for you guys to comment. Let us know your thoughts. You know, what do you want to hear more of? That sort of thing. Because at the end of the day, guys, we're doing this for all of you, you know. So again, shout out to Evan, Jeremy, and Thomas here for our initial take. And we are looking forward to seeing you guys again here soon. Thanks so much, guys. And we'll talk to you later.